Our movie kicks off with a chilling vision, a towering dark mountain, a floating door hidden deep within a cave, and eerie, distorted bodies hanging overhead. The nightmare ends with a mysterious, shadowy figure, its eyes glowing ominously. Meet Sarah Dunn, an 18-year-old girl tormented by these recurring nightmares. She wakes up in a park, her phone reading 7:11 a.m. Life hasn't been easy for Sarah. She's a high school student with a strained relationship with her mother and no stable place to live. She sleeps wherever she can, a cafe, a park, or occasionally crashing at a friend's place. We see her waiting outside her mother's house, sneaking in when possible for food and a quick shower. Her lack of rest makes staying awake in class a struggle, so she downs caffeine whenever she can find it. Sarah's past is equally troubled. She used to sleepwalk as a child, and ever since, her dreams have haunted her, making her wonder if she suffers from insomnia. At school, her only real friend Zoe invites her over for a sleepover, but that night, Sarah chooses the park again, and the nightmares return, even more vivid this time. In her dream, she sees hanging bodies, a blinding white light, and a circular portal where the shadowy figure stands. The next day, something catches her eye on the school's notice board, an ad for a sleep study program paying $12 an hour. The study, led by Dr. Meyer, piques Sarah's interest. If nothing else, at least she'll have a safe place to sleep. At the sleep clinic, Dr. Anita, one of the researchers, interviews Sarah and enrolls her in the study. She learns that there are 6 participants, 4 men and 2 women. Sarah is given a high-tech sleep suit fitted with sensors to monitor her brain activity. The cutting-edge device, developed by scientists at Berkeley, can translate brain waves into visual images. Dr. Meyer's goal? To uncover the hidden images our minds create while dreaming. On her first night, Sarah sleeps better than she has in ages. The next morning, during her check-in with Dr. Anita, she feels more rested than ever. Meanwhile, back at the lab, the researchers analyze her brain activity, fascinated by the results. Later that day, Sarah is reading by the river when she receives an unexpected call from her mother. She declines it without hesitation. That evening, she visits a library where a mysterious young man recommends a Philip K. Dick novel, telling her that his books will make her think. She smiles, a rare moment of kindness from someone other than Zoe. That same night, Sarah and Zoe go to the movies. After the screening, she spots the same man from the library again. At first, she shrugs it off, but when she sees him yet again, she starts to feel uneasy. That night, at the sleep clinic, the nightmares return with terrifying intensity. Sarah finds herself in a massive hall, its ceiling lined with eerie panels, a flashing light illuminating the shadows. A bent figure hovers mid-air, and 3 shadowy figures rise from the ground. She moves through a long, dimly lit corridor lined with hanging bodies. At the end of it, a door creaks open. Inside, a baby angel statue rushes toward her. Just before she wakes, she sees a woman standing in front of a seated man. Sarah jolts awake, gasping in terror. She's not alone. Dr. Meyer has been watching her dream images in real time. The next morning, during her daily check-in, Dr. Anita shows Sarah images from her dream and asks if she recognizes any of them. Most feel unfamiliar until she sees a clear image of the shadow figure. The moment she lays eyes on it, she suffers a violent seizure. The team rushes her to emergency care. Just then, the mysterious young man she saw earlier appears. His real name is Dr. Jeremy, but everyone calls him Riff. Sarah, still in shock, immediately confronts him. She's convinced he's been stalking her and demands to know why he's there. But Riff insists it's all a misunderstanding. He hadn't been following her. He urges her to stay in the study, assuring her that whatever is happening, she needs to see it through. But Sarah can't shake the feeling that something is very, very wrong. Our movie takes a dark turn as Dr. Myers confronts Anita for showing dream images without authorization. He warns her that exposing test subjects to their subconscious projections is extremely risky. It could have severe consequences. Later that afternoon, Sarah is doing laundry when a shadowy figure appears behind her in the real world. At the same time, she receives a chilling call from Zoe. Her friend is screaming before the call abruptly cuts off. Suddenly, Sarah suffers another violent seizure and blacks out. When she regains consciousness, an elderly woman informs her that a boy has stolen something from her. Checking her pockets, Sarah realizes her phone is gone. She quickly grabs her bike and rushes to Zoe's house, but Zoe is nowhere to be found. Now overwhelmed with fear and uncertainty, Sarah decides to quit the sleep study. She waits outside the facility, determined to walk away from it all. That's when Riff arrives. Despite his awkwardness, it's clear he has feelings for Sarah, though he's too insecure to admit it. Apologizing once again, he invites her to his office. Sarah, still shaken, demands answers about the disturbing images from her dreams. Riff hesitates, saying he's not allowed to reveal anything, but Sarah won't back down. She threatens to leave the study unless he comes clean. Left with no choice, Riff takes her to the observatory and places a brain-scanning headset on himself. He explains how the device visualizes thoughts, displaying them as images on a screen. Sarah watches as Riff lifts his hand, and an identical image appears on the monitor in real time. He then reveals that they've been using this technology to study her dreams. According to him, the brain generates countless images, sounds, and emotions during sleep, creating a reality we call dreams. To prove his point, Riff shows Sarah recordings from other test subjects. One person dreams of a dorm room and an endless staircase filled with shadowy figures hanging upside down. Another imagines eerie statues performing Nazi salutes. Seeing these unsettling visions, Sarah finally feels a sense of relief. She's not the only one haunted by terrifying dreams. With a bit more trust in the process, she agrees to continue the study. That night, while Riff and Anita monitor the subjects, something horrifying happens. A shadowy figure suddenly appears on the screens. Shockingly, Sarah's brain data matches images from two other subjects. They're all seeing the same thing. Anita is visibly shaken, unable to comprehend how this is possible. Riff, however, begins piecing things together. He recalls seeing shadowy figures in his childhood nightmares, but dismissed them as nothing more than bad dreams. His theory? The subconscious of all humans harbors a universal fear of this dark entity. Back in the sleep lab, Sarah's vitals spike. She's having another seizure, and when she wakes up, blood is dripping from her eyes. Overcome with terror, she flees the facility, running aimlessly until she finds herself at a nightclub. She desperately asks the night guard if Zoe is inside. He nods, but after searching the entire place, she finds no sign of her friend. Exhausted and disoriented, Sarah stumbles into the bathroom where she collapses. Luckily, Riff has been following her and manages to catch her before it's too late. He carries her back to his apartment, unaware that something even more sinister is unfolding at the facility. Meanwhile, two test subjects are experiencing something terrifying. Though their eyes are open, they remain trapped in sleep paralysis. They stare blankly, all fixated on something beside Sarah's empty bed. Back in the control room, Dr. Meyer and his team witness pure horror. A shadow man appears on all the screens. His glowing eyes pierce through the darkness, standing ominously close to the sleeping subjects. What's even more chilling, everyone is dreaming about the exact same figure at the same time. As the scientists watch in stunned silence, the shadow man begins moving. Then suddenly, static fills the screens, images flicker wildly, and in an instant both test subjects jolt awake. The entire facility is thrown into chaos as the power cuts out. The screams of the researchers echo in the darkness. And then, silence. Sarah finds herself lost in yet another eerie dream. Flashlights sweep across the darkness, revealing a cemetery-like structure. A shadowy figure stands on a podium, and deeper into the dream, another dark figure with glowing eyes appears, surrounded by lifeless, shadowy forms. The tension builds until Sarah jolts awake. She's at Riff's place. Her eye is covered with a patch, but something feels off. Peeling it back slightly, she notices her eye has turned dark and looks disturbingly infected. Meanwhile, Riff is sound asleep, hooked up to a sleep monitoring machine. Curious, Sarah glances at the screen, and what she sees sends chills down her spine. The screen shows intimate moments between her and Riff, but they look different. Their teeth are sharp, almost vampiric. As she stares in horror, the shadowy figure from her dream suddenly appears inside Riff's nightmare. Panic sets in, and she shakes him awake just before the entity reaches him. Later, they head out for coffee, and in the bathroom, Sarah checks her eye. Miraculously, it's completely healed. Shocked, she removes the patch. Still shaken by everything, she asks Riff if she can stay at his place for the night. He agrees. Traumatized and exhausted, the two share a vulnerable moment and get intimate. But just as their passion peaks, Sarah spots two shadowy figures lurking behind Riff. Darkness engulfs her, and she blacks out. Riff rushes her to the hospital, desperate for answers. While waiting for her test results, he drifts into another nightmare. In it, he finds himself in a long, eerie hospital corridor, a metal door at the end. A shadowy figure lurks behind it, and from the darkness, a multi-limbed creature emerges, chasing him. He wakes up in a panic, only to realize Sarah is gone. Checking the hospital's security footage, he sees Sarah sleepwalking through the hallways. He races after her, calling her name, but when he reaches her, blood starts dripping from her eyes. Terrified, he calls Anita, urging her to bring the sleep monitoring machine. They need to see what's happening inside Sarah's mind. Anita arrives and they hook Sarah up to the machine as they follow her through the hospital and into the woods. On the screen, shadowy figures start appearing all around her. She keeps walking until she reaches an open field. Then, out of nowhere, a phone starts ringing. Riff hesitantly picks it up. The moment he unlocks it, Sarah lets out a blood-curdling scream and snaps back to reality. Shaken, Riff rushes to comfort her, explaining everything. But then Sarah notices something strange. The phone Riff is holding is hers, the same phone she lost long ago. Confused, she demands to know how it ended up in the forest and who was calling her. Then things get even weirder. The time on the phone reads 10:01 p.m. Riff checks his watch. It also says 10:01 p.m. But when Sarah had escaped the hospital, it was 2 p.m. How did time suddenly shift? Before they can process it, eerie sounds echo through the woods. Three figures with glowing eyes emerge from the darkness. They lunge at them, grabbing Anita first, then Riff. Sarah watches in sheer terror as they descend upon her. Then everything cuts to black. Suddenly, Sarah wakes up again, back in Riff's apartment. But this time, she's naked, straddling Riff's lifeless body. His eyes are gouged out. Horrified, she stumbles to the bathroom to clean herself up. Then, her phone vibrates. It's a text message. "You've been in a coma for 20 years. We've found a new way to contact you. We don't know how you'll receive this message. Please wake up." Sarah stares at the message, then slowly looks at her reflection. Her lips curl into a grin, fangs, and that's where the movie ends. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more great content. Thank you for watching.